there's a million different ways to make lots of money in real estate. Just pick one. And if you focus, you're going to be fine. You're going to make good money, and if you focus on something, you actually jump in and do it for 6 months, and then you learn something else and you want to try and expand to that. Great. But start with something and at least build proficiency in it. Maybe not mastery or expertise, but at least become hyper proficient in it, and then add something to your tool belt.
Welcome to the Contrarian Capitalist Podcast, the ultimate destination for accredited investors and entrepreneurs seeking alternative wealth building strategies. Discover how to fast-track your journey to wealth and time freedom by thinking outside the box. If you're ready to join the ranks of the Contrarian Capitalists and learn the most effective ways to reach your financial goals faster, you're in the right place. Let's get started with today's episode of the Contrarian Capitalist Podcast.
Thank you once again for tuning into another episode of the Contrarian Capitalist. It is I, your favorite silverback, Sylvania Harrod, and on today's episode, while I was out in the jungle, I found myself another silverback who's directly out there making things happen. So Blake, funny enough, we probably talked more prior to the podcast interview than what we'll probably do during the interview. But the most part is my audience are people who are currently working the 9 to 5. They're high income earners. They're at a place where they know that there's another option that's available for them because they're contrarian by nature, but they're just kind of in that indecision point. So when I was out there looking for people who have already made it happen, like just to give you guys an introduction to Blake has already successfully transitioned from a traditional 9 to 5 career to building a multi-million-dollar real estate portfolio, y'all. So he knows what he's talking about. He's going to share with us the ugly truth of things that he had in his journey. And we're just going to kick it off from here. So Blake, tell me a little bit about yourself, how you got to that point, and just introduce yourself, my friend.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me. My name is Blake Choisnet. Your listeners will probably see the last name and be like, that's not
Choisnet.
Like Choisnet. I promise you, it's Choisnet.
Why say your last name?
Yeah, I was raised in a pretty traditional household. My dad was in the banking world, and so he's in a suit. Woke up 8 a.m. Was at work. But 5 came home, and it was a good life. Like, we were happy. I think a lot of people position it like, man, if you work a 9 to 5, like, your life's terrible. Like, my 9 to 5 was great. I was probably working a little bit more than 9 to 5, but I've got the achiever and contrarian nature in me. So I was a good little boy. I went to university. I studied hard. I gave up times when I could be doing fun stuff to be studying. I got degrees in aerospace and mechanical engineering and left. And then I what I was told was that would just fix everything. Life would be fine after that. So I went into the workforce, did some engineering stuff, some of the nerd stuff, and then managed some groups, was in sales, business development. And around that time, I was coming up on 30 and really just wanted to start like settling down. And so I started looking at buying a house. I was living in Austin at the time, but the median home value was, 20% down on an investment house was more than I was making per year at that time. Mm-hmm. And so I went ahead and I bought a house and I house hacked it and just rented it out to my buddies. And so that covered more than my mortgage. I was like, man, there's something here. It's pretty wild. My house is appreciating at a crazy rate because it's Austin and I'm not paying any rent, So I started looking into real estate more because I hadn't really done that. Started looking into real estate more, did that with another house, and then realized, man, if I could do this every year for 15 years, put all these houses on 15-year notes, I wouldn't have to work ever again. So once I defined like the 15-year window, I was like, how can I shrink that? And so I started looking at markets that were oriented for cash flow, started investing remotely, and built a multi-million-dollar portfolio in about 18 months, retired in 2 years, self-made millionaire after that. And I don't come from money, we didn't have a bunch of money. I didn't marry into money. So the idea that this was possible was like, not for me. Like, that's for other people. And I'm sure that it's, it's great, whatever, but that's just not in my future. And then discovered that money you can just kind of create and figure it out. And it's a skill, it's part of a game. So built up that portfolio. And then after I retired at 32 and thought that's pretty dope. And then after about probably 2 weeks of sitting around, I was like, man, I'm bored out of my mind. What am I going to do? And so if you know me, I'm an evangelist. So I'm telling people about the stuff I like, and I love my Oklahoma State University Cowboys where I went to school. I love my truck, my '07 F-150, I just love it. It's, the truck I picked my wife up in the first time. And so I'm not going to get rid of it ever. I love my wife and my kids. And so I was just nerding out, telling people about real estate. And I had so many people asking me to help them that I was like, this is kind of infringing on my lifestyle goals, like the time I want to spend with my wife and my son. And so I just started systematizing and putting it together. So now I work on building my portfolio and helping other people do the same, whether they live in a good market or not, whether they got money or not. And so yeah, that's kind of my story.
Man, I love everything that you were sharing because, like yourself, I retired at 38. And I remember sitting there at different moments and going, I don't like vacation because normally it takes me by like day 3 to kind of like settle in to where I'm at, because my brain is always like running. It was conditioned to like run to think about other things that I need to be doing. And I told my wife, like, when I retire, my definition of retirement was I'm going to stop spending most of my time doing the things I don't want to do and start spending time doing most of the time doing what I want to do. And I leave that 20% variable just for honey-do list because the ADHD in me is like, okay, there's different tasks that my wife needs to get done. Let me make sure I put it on the priority list, even though it doesn't mean it.
Dude, it's wild that you're ADHD because I'm hyper ADHD too.
Yeah.
And I noticed with a lot of like high achievers and a lot of entrepreneurs, like ADHD is just, you're like, oh wait, you too? Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. It's because we can hyperthread.
Yeah.
So like it's unique how we can hyper thread if we can get to the point of emotional regulation, to where like you don't, just because you can doesn't mean you should, but that brain can see what's not there at the current moment. So because it can see hyper threaded conversations, I can work on this business at this moment while I'm also thinking about what I need to do for the family, and you can balance multiple things at one period of time. Yeah. So it's life's little gift. It's probably why when we were kids in classes we couldn't sit still. Is because we need to be kinesthetic. We need to be moving and doing things. And
maybe what kind of created some of the contrarian nature in us.
Correct.
Because we're like, you guys are living in this one lane, but I got 6 lanes going on. Like, let's roll.
One window, 32 tabs open.
Exactly. Like, yes, that's my story.
And so I literally have just this screen and this tab and everything on Do Not Disturb. Because if not, I'm going to be in this conversation, but thinking about 7 other things at the same time.
Exactly.
So that leads me to like, you were explaining a little bit about like real estate investing and people that you're serving. What was the thing about real estate that really like stuck to you as why you decided to go that route?
It's interesting you ask that because, whenever people are asking, what are you going to do when you grow up? Those types of questions. I never thought real estate because I wanted it to be sexy and unique. And so I always said architect because I liked drawing. And I like math.
Yeah.
Like I've got the creative in me. I actually started in university as a saxophone major. I studied jazz saxophone. I've got my saxophone over here. But then I ended up in engineering. And so I've got those 2 components. But I didn't even think about real estate because it was too normal. It was too average, at least in my mind there. And so I didn't really think about it until I got into Austin and I saw, what rental values or what home values were doing. And from there, I was really compelled by 1, the ability to get cash flow monthly. And then 2, the use of debt to be able to allow you to essentially afford something that you otherwise just couldn't afford. And it actually being a good decision. I was raised on Dave Ramsey. So when I bought my first house, I was like, my dad's rolling over and I guess he's not in his grave yet, but like he would be rolling over, that I was taking out so much debt. And so I was freaked out by $250,000 of debt. But then as I learned about debt and how you can use it and how it's valuable, if used correctly, I was like, dang, this is crazy. And so at first the cash flow was really what kind of got to me because I wanted to get to a point where I had enough cash flow to where I could do whatever I wanted with my time. I wasn't 100% sure what I wanted to do with my time. I thought maybe I'll do full-time ministry, or I had spent some time in Northeast India near Nepal and doing some community development over there. I thought maybe I'll do that and I can fund that work, or maybe I'll do something else. But so first it was the cash flow, and then I learned about the tax advantages and the debt pay down, and then on top of everything, the appreciation is pretty sweet too. So I think those are the things that and they're not making any more of it. It's the single greatest wealth creator in the history of the world. And so I think, with demand continuing to go up, we're not building enough, right? We're like 15 million units short on residential. So, those property values are only going to keep going up. So I thought, let's try it out, see how it works. And I'm glad I did.
What's interesting hearing your story is that 1, I played the saxophone in elementary school. So I love the sound of saxophone. I was also I thought I was going to be an architect, because I love drawing things, and I ended up in engineering because it's so interesting seeing synchronicity. Is like, and so now because of the engineering focus, it helped me understand like the quantitative side of things. I always consider myself a scientist. I'm like, I'm testing. It's the engineer in me. It's like, oh, cool. If you want to do it, test it, see how it works out. And I don't believe anything unless I have data to back it. Yeah. So then I realized that like real estate becomes a beautiful marriage, because real estate is just numbers. It's just math. If you can, like, when it comes to like mergers and acquisitions and doing that, you realize there's so much complexity into it versus real estate. It's just math. And if you don't like math, don't do it, because it's just simple. Is it going to cash flow? What is my debt? How am I going to cover it? What's my appreciation? That's it. It's just a simple formula. And once you understand the formula, you can realize, okay, based upon my risk tolerance determines exactly what assets I decide to spend time with, you know?
And that's the nice thing about it is like my whole approach is real estate's a science. It's not an art. Like an art, you can't, you could work so hard and you'd never be as good as somebody, what I saw like a 9-year-old playing piano the other day, just unbelievably, or like mixing and creating full productions as a 9-year-old. I could study my whole life and I wouldn't get that good. That's pretty disheartening. Like when I was playing the saxophone and I'd listen to John Coltrane, one of two things would happen. Either I'd be so motivated I'd go practice for hours, or most of the time I'd be so discouraged because I knew I was never going to get there that I'd be like, what am I doing with my life? You know what I mean? I just practiced 5 hours and I'm never going to be able to do that. So yeah, just being able to science it and get to the point where if you define your metrics for success ahead of time, if the numbers say that it's above that number, it's a go. You should offer on that property. And if it's below it, then no, you shouldn't. But there's a lot of, I think, particularly engineers, like highly analytical people, maybe people in finance, doctors, just people that are more analytical, they really struggle with analysis paralysis. And they think I just need more data, when really they've got enough to make a decision. They're just scared, but they don't know how to recognize that they're scared. Like the emotional regulation or like their awareness on what their true motivation is not quite as maybe developed, or maybe they're struggling to be honest with themselves about it, because analysis paralysis is just fear. It's what us analytical people like to call fear is analysis paralysis.
I completely agree, man. Like I was talking to a person earlier today and they went and were going to get their license like 5 years ago. They went ahead and studied a bunch of stuff. So they read all the books. They know about the BURR method. They know about different assets. And so I asked them and said, so why haven't you started? Like, you've spent 5 years studying all this stuff. Why haven't you started? So if you were talking to that person, what would you say to them? Like what are some of the ways they can overcome some of the common barriers that they're struggling with?
Yeah. Action is the first component, but you're wondering like, what do I take action on? Usually these types of people, the difference between an engineering problem and a creative problem, and where engineers and these highly analytical people make mistakes is they think that every problem is an engineering problem. And what characterizes an engineering problem is it assumes that there's one right answer and that there's enough data to be able to infer that right answer. And so your job is to grab all the data and then decide. All right. And so what this person is doing is understanding all of the different models and saying, which is best for me? Now I'll go do it. The problem with that is there's a high barrier to entry on actually learning each model. And it's going to take all your time. You're never going to start. Whereas a creative decision-making process assumes there are thousands, millions of right answers. There's an infinite amount of right answers. And there's not enough data to be able to make the decision. So what you do is you look around and you say like, all right, I'm going to try this way. I'm going to go this way. So you just try something. And so what I say to those people is there's a million different ways to make lots of money in real estate. Just pick one. And if you focus, you're going to be fine. You're going to make good money. And if you focus on something, you actually jump in and do it for 6 months, and then you learn something else and you want to try and expand to that. Great. But start with something and at least build proficiency in it. Maybe not mastery or expertise, but at least become hyper proficient in it, and then add something to your tool belt. I'm teaching students, a lot of my students do the BURR model. Teach them the BURR model, but they focus on the BURR model, and then they expand to maybe some seller finance or some creative finance or some sub-twos or some wraps or turnkey, whatever it might be, equity recycle. But they've got to focus. And if they don't focus, then they end up doing 100 things at once, which means they're not really doing anything. So just pick something. And for people that are struggling to pick something, if you know someone doing one of the 3 to 5 things you're looking at, just ask them, can I do this with you? Like accountability is a blessing. You just want somebody to help you keep moving in the same direction. So that's what I'd say is you just got to do something. And most of the time it's just because you're scared. Like it's scary to try something new. It's something that there's a high probability that you're going to suck at. Like when was the last time most people did that? It was probably grade school. Right? Like you tried math and you were terrible at it, or you tried social studies or writing or poetry or whatever it is, or you tried baseball or ballet or soccer and you were bad at it. So you kind of pivoted to the things you're good at. And then as you become an adult, you just kind of keep narrowing that in because you really do want to focus on the things that are your strength. But when you realize that all the things that you know right now won't lead you exactly to where you want to go, you've got to learn something new. And so the fear of like, I'm going to look like an idiot. Like I'm going to tell these people I'm investing in real estate now. And then what if it doesn't work? That then becomes a question of, are you going to be who you want to be? Like, are you courageous? Like, are you committed? Are you disciplined? Are you going to be the man or woman you want to be? And the answer to that is you can control that. You decide whether you're not going to be that person or whether you are going to be that person. And the best way to do that is just put yourself in the arena. Actually do it.
So funny that you say that. One of my favorite quotes I have down in the jungle, which is my gym, and then over here is Teddy Roosevelt's "Man in the Arena" quote.
Yeah, mine's right here. So these are my 3 responsibilities as a father and leader of our family. Yeah. And then my Teddy Roosevelt quote is right there.
It's so great because what I've learned is that like just get in the arena. I had one mentor one time. They called children like the greatest teacher you ever have in life because you'll see everything within yourself and everything you don't like about yourself through your children because they're a reflection. They're a mirror for you. Yeah. And as you go through, you look at it and you say, I just got so comfortable with just failing forward fast and often. And I'm like, I call it F this, fail forward fast and often. And it was so much easier to realize that like, hey, I'm going to go do this, but I just take more shots than the average person.
Yeah.
I was watching the NBA All-Star game and they had it was Sunday because they had this weird format that I don't know if they're going to do it again, but they're testing, they're trying. I got to award them to like trying to figure out something different. And the commentator was talking about, it was the OGs who were like multiple year perennial all-stars versus the rising stars. And he explained, he said the difference between like they all have the capability to be here and play on this court. The difference is one team is just way more efficient and is taking more chances than the younger group. And so when I look at that space, it's like, oh, that's 100% true. Like the people that I talk to and have conversations with, we're just willing to test more things. Yeah. And we're willing to go on there because I would much rather have a higher probability of success by trying than sit there in that like paralysis by analysis. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and when you get to that point and you just start trying, you realize like, one, it's not that hard. The problems that I thought, like the fear that I had around it was way overblown because your brain isn't designed to make you happy. It's designed to help you survive. And then you realize it helps you for people that are really obsessed and controlled by other people's opinions of them. It dampens those opinions because you have people telling you like, you can't do that. Like I have people still commenting to me on my socials, like, that's not how you invest in real estate. And I wonder to myself, how many doors you got? You know what I mean? Like, have you ever done this? Because if you haven't, and you just read a book, there's a difference between theory and application. Like your opinion doesn't matter to me because you haven't gone where I want to go. And so you're not even trying, And so it allows me so easily to just say, and I used to be really controlled by people's opinions. And now it's so much easier because I'm like, well, I'm actually doing it. Like if you're trying to tell me how to get a 6-pack and you got a beer gut, like that's just not, you're not going to help me get a 6-pack,
Yeah, that reminds me of so I'm a diehard Philadelphia sports fan. So and football's my favorite sport. Eagles are my number one team. So like I love Jalen Hurts because like I've watched him go from the first freshman quarterback to ever start for Nick Saban to losing that national championship his freshman year to a BS call because it was a pick play that Clemson ran to getting replaced in the national championship and still showing up his junior year and being there the entire year, not being a baby, going to OU, playing well, and then getting drafted. I couldn't be even happier that we drafted him. I just wanted to see.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I want to see you get drafted, then to watch what turned into when everybody doubted him the entire time, because that really showed me those in the cheapest seats chirp the loudest.
Oh, yeah.
And then watching him not only play in the game, but be the MVP of the game was like the highlight of everything that I've taught upon, which is like nobody doing anything better than you is going to criticize you.
Ever. No.
Ever,
No. It's like looking back at your younger self and being like, dude, you're doing it. You're the reason I am where I am. And for all the mistakes you made, you're doing it. Like you're trying your best. Yeah. Like it's just. And with Jalen, I was an Oklahoma State guy. And so anybody that plays for OU, I hate him. But to see like how he played and who, even I like Baker too. Yeah. But like those guys, you have to respect them Because I mean, Jalen was told by whenever he left Bama, he talked to Nick Saban, and Nick Saban said you should probably leave because you don't have the I think it was the deep ball accuracy or whatever. So I'm going to go with, I think it was Tua or
it was Tua. Yeah, it's Tua.
So I'm going to go with him. And so he transferred because essentially the greatest coach in the history of college football said, "You're not good enough for me," right? And he said it in a good way, but he said that. And so he went to OU and did exactly what Saban said, and now look at him. So
Saban told him to go to OU. He said, "That's your only shot you have. Go to OU, work with Lincoln Riley. He can help you." And like, I think that as a leader, that's an exceptional statement to make because he showed he cared. And like, I tell you the hard truth, which is like, you're not going to start for me next year. I'm going with this guy because he gives us the greatest chance to win. But I want to see you succeed as a human. So go here. Go to this place. And just watching that happen, man, it was just.
And despite it being in his best interest, Nick Saban, to say, stay here, be my backup, because football's a brutal sport. Tua could break his femur and be out the whole year. And he said, I want the best for you. You go, do your best.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah, man. I completely understand. So like thinking about that, like I just think of like, tell me about what the 90-day rental roadmap is, man. Because when I saw it, it was very intriguing.
Yeah.
Which is why I sent your message.
My goal in life is to lead people to freedom and to get them to the point where money, the only reason you don't do what you want to do is money, right? I just taught a group of college grads, new college grads toward the end of college. And I asked all of them at the very beginning, all right, what's your dream job? What's your dream job? What's your dream job? What are you doing after this program? What are you doing after this? Every single one of them answered a different thing than their dream job, but their dream job was doable. And I said, well, why aren't you doing that? Well, I got to pay the bills, or I got to do this, or I got to whatever. Like there's always an excuse. And I think the world is just people are more fulfilled, and the world is a much better place when people are doing what they're wired to do. And so what I want to do is get people to freedom. So I want to make millionaires, get people to the point where they have enough financial freedom to be able to just say, what do I want to do? If you love painting and it fills your soul and you suck at painting, you can paint, like that's the deal. And so, cause that was my story. I liked my 9 to 5. I just felt like I wasn't fulfilled in it. There was something missing. I was doing some stuff I was really good at that I liked. And then there was other components that I was like, well, man, I did a lot of work on that, but I'm not getting the credit for it. Or I feel like I'm a culture guy. And so I put a lot of effort into building the culture of the organization. Even things like when I was in sales, leading as part of a sales group, I organized all the sellers to once a month. We got together, we wrote thank you notes to other people in the organization, because literally everybody else's role exists to make us successful. But they don't get the credit that oftentimes the sales group does, because we bring in the money. And so we're sending out cards and whatnot, but that's not showing up on anybody's performance review. I'm not getting any bonuses because I hit some KPI of sending enough thank you notes, And so, but I wanted to be able to do what I felt like I was wired to do. And so, as I realized that was possible, I was like, man, I got to tell people about this. It's the evangelist in me, you know what I mean? Like, I got to tell people about this. And so I started telling people about it. And if I look back, in the 4 people around me in my cubicle, they all own rental properties now. Some of them multiple. And that's not because I was training them. I was just like talking about it. And they were like, well, how do you do that? Try it. I'll help you, And so I started just helping as many people as possible. And the 90-day rental roadmap, the goal is to get you your first cash flowing property in 90 days. And, I'm not a marketing dude. So like the 90 days, like it could be 17. We've had someone close on their first property in 17 days. I could say the 17-day rental. I just think 90 days is very, very reasonable. And you should be able to get your first rental property in 90 days or less. And then get a 90-day a property every 90 days with 3 to 6 hours a week of work. Like in addition to a full-time gig, like not taking away time from your family or whatever. Like it's got to be one of your top priorities. Like it's not like a 30 minutes a month type of deal, because you got to learn a new skill, a fundamentally different skill. But the goal is to be able to get enough of those to where then you can replace your income or be work optional. Because I work with really 2 types of people. One is I want to leave my job. It's sucking my soul dry. Okay, well, what's your freedom number? What do you have to have coming in every single month to be able to do that? Okay, let's focus on that. And we're hyper focused on cash flow. Others are saying, I just want to make sure my money's working for me and it's building wealth. And I've got some FU money so that if something happens in my organization, I can walk away and I'm fine. Right. And so for those people, that's the goal, is to just get them to the point where they build the skill, they know how to do it, and they can do it without me. And so yeah, that's really the whole goal of the 90-day rental roadmap, is to teach them the skill to where they can then go do it all on their own.
You know what's interesting? It's like hearing you say those different topics is things that I hear constantly myself, where I call it the FU number. It's the Freedom Unlock number. So like, what is your actual FU number? And typically it's not anywhere near what you actually think it is. Yeah. Like I need to make $1 million a year to do. Why? Have you actually calculated your expenses?
Right.
Do you know what exactly it takes you to be able? It's probably less than what you think. And then once you see that, there's 3 different tiers. Like it's like, okay, this is stabilization. This is homeostasis. This is kind of ground zero.
Mm-hmm.
This is what the number you need to do. Okay, now you need to get to the place of getting to scale, and then you can get to acceleration. Like it's just boom, guess, but you don't really need that. You need this. So the other question that I hear people pop up is like, how do I do it with next to no money? Like maybe I don't have enough money because I had other things happen in life. Well, how do you solve that challenge?
So for, the people I work with kind of fall in 2 buckets. One is they've got money to start with, and they should use a different strategy. And this is one of the challenges of being a new real estate investor is if you don't know what you're doing, you're going to talk to 10 people and get at least 10 different suggestions on strategy. But there is a strategy that's right for you. And so that's one of the ways I serve them is I say, all right, for you with your constraints and your goals, go this way. For those that say, I want to get started, but I don't have any money, which was my story. I didn't have any money. You should use a model that is going to get you move you toward your goals. So for example, if it's cash flow and you want to hit this freedom number as fast as possible, you should optimize for cash flow, not for appreciation. And then you need a market that serves that. So you need a market that's optimized for cash flow, which is not the big markets like Austin or Portland or the Bay Area, right? They're smaller markets between usually 50 to 250,000 people. And you need something that's scalable, like reproducible. And so most of those people are focusing on the BURR model. So all this is instead of putting 20% down on a property, it's you use the flip process to create that 20% equity, because the bank doesn't care about 20% down. They care about what they will loan on the property. It's just like you don't care about what somebody else is paying. You care what you're paying. Like if your daughters ask you, hey, this thing's 40% off, you're going to save 40%. You're like, I'll save 100% by not buying it. So the bank doesn't care about what you bring to close. They care about what they bring. And so if you just go find a property for 50 grand that costs 20 grand to fix up and it's worth 100, you made 30 grand. You can either flip it and sell it and take that money, go, buy a boat or whatever, or you bring that over to the lender again and you refinance your note. And now it's just like you put 20% down, except you used your equity in the flip as your 20% down. So there's no money out of your own pocket. And the way they do that is they use private money lenders. So like people with their own money that want to lend on this, that have a first position lien, they're going to make 18 to 22% on their money, and their money is going to be reliquid in 3 to 6 months. So if they have some medical emergency or they find the perfect investment mechanism that they've been looking for, they can put it there. Otherwise, they're making great money. And so I'm teaching them how to find those people, how to deliver it to them, because for the right person, and you tell them what private money lending is like give them a drink of water in the desert. They're just so pumped about it. It's the easiest money you'll ever make. And then they just recycle it, and these people are like, oh yeah, I made great money. Let's go do this again. And that's why it's so scalable. They just keep using the money over and over again, but they don't have to put any of their own money into it. So that's how I coach them to do that, because that's how I built my portfolio. And again, it's not an art, it's a science. Like it's just simple and reproducible. It's all about the numbers. If the numbers say it's a good deal, go buy it. If it says it's a bad deal, throw it away. So
I love private lending because when I had gotten started, I had gone through the normal process. I was a BURR person. So for those of you who don't know what the BURR method is, it's buy, renovate, refinance, repeat. And so what you're doing is you're buying a property, you make money on the buy, make sure you have it there. You go ahead, you renovate. Sometimes it's lipstick on a pig. Sometimes it's full gut, depending on your risk tolerance. You refinance and you just go through the process and wash it. But the reason and so I started going through that process and I go, all right, great. This is a lot of fun. This sucks because contractors aren't showing up at dinner time. I'm managing it while having 3 young children. And I'm going back, like having a source and figure out materials, and I'm delivering materials and I'm doing that stuff. And like, man, this is a time suck. And the entire time, the hard money guy who lent me the money is at a place like, oh, cool. Just let me know when it shows up. Let me know when things happen to be there. Send me the invoices of whatever I need. And they were just there. And I realized really quickly, this is why I talk about like being an uncle versus being a parent. An uncle is phenomenal. Like you go to go.
Oh yeah. Give them ice cream. Send them home.
Send them home. Do things. And it's such a much funner process because you make the returns on your money and you just keep rinsing your money constantly, just to make sure it's going there. So like I think about to land the plane for this conversation, like what would you give as a piece of advice to the high earning professional who's eager to start their journey in real estate investing? Like, so what's one or two things you want them to take action today that they can be able to use and run out?
Yeah, I'd say first, you got to really clearly define what your goals are, and those are usually lifestyle oriented. Like you got to figure out what's my lifestyle, what lifestyle do I want, and what am I pursuing? And that will inform your goals. It's kind of like the story of if you're trying to walk in a straight line in the snow, the difference between looking at your feet versus looking at a fence post, you're going to end up going straight because you're looking where you're going. So you really got to define your goals. And that is, do I want enough money coming in passively for me to be able to just do whatever I want? Or do I just want my money to grow? Those are two different channels. If you just want your money to grow, then buying some Class A and B properties makes sense with 20% down. I mean, you can cash flow. You find a good market, you can cash flow $300 a month, maybe $400 a month on a property, and you know that cash on cash return is probably going to be 10 or 15%, and you got a ton of tax benefits. If you really want to scale and orient for cash flow, you got to find a cash flowing market. And I'm seeing great deals right now, just for anybody interested, coming out of Akron, Ohio, Dayton, Ohio, Birmingham, Alabama, Jackson, Mississippi, Macon, Georgia. But they've got to be oriented toward cash flow. These are places you could buy a $90,000 house and rent it out for $1,500 a month. And so for people that are saying like, how do I get started? Like, how do I learn how to do that? I think you want someone to teach you how to do it. Not everybody needs a coach, like a professional coach or a program or anything like that. But whoever's teaching you needs three things. They need to know what you want to know. So they've got to have the practical knowledge. They got to be in the arena, right? Not just having read a book or a podcast on it. They've got to be, that's one. They've got to be able to teach and communicate it, which is not the same skill. Everybody's been in an organization where the best individual contributor was made manager. And they don't even want to do that. You know what I mean? They just want to be an IC. That's what they're good at. So they got to be able to communicate it and teach it, because that's a discrete skill. And hardest to find, they got to be willing and able to give you their time. And so if you got somebody that's willing to do that can give you those three things, man, ask them, say, hey, can we do this? Like, I'll work for them for free. Be like, I'll help you close a few properties for free so that I can be a part of the process, learn from them. That way you learn the entire process from somebody actually going through it. And then for people that don't have that, man, there are people out there that do it. Like, it doesn't have to be me. It can be somebody else. There's a lot of people out there that have done it, that are helping people be really successful. I mean, the online coaching space, there's some people doing some shady stuff, but find somebody to walk you through it. And it's kind of like college. You know, those types of things are going to cost some money, but college costs you money. And a lot of people aren't even using their degrees anymore. Me, and for example, you know, you in a lot of ways, I mean, you studied, you're not even using your degree anymore. And I paid tens and tens and tens of thousands of dollars for that degree. So that's what I'd say is figure out, you know, what are your goals and what you really want to achieve, and then put some time toward what's the fastest I can get there in a really sustainable way. You know, do I really want to recreate the wheel and take 5 years to learn every single model and then decide for myself? Like, if this is a goal of yours, you should put a timeline on making a decision on how you're going to go about it, or just give up on it. Like, just defer it until next year, but give yourself 30 days to make a decision, put that on your calendar, and force yourself to make a decision. Either, yes, I'm in and I'm doing it this way, or no, I just don't have the capacity. It's not on the priority list. Just be honest with yourself. It's not a priority for now. I'm going to reevaluate this in July or in January. So that's what I'd say.
Blake, man, thanks for sharing all that information, of just sharing all the nuggets and wisdom you did over this period of time. How can people be able to find you? Where do they need to go if they want to connect and learn more for you? Yeah,
you can find me at BlakeChoisnet.com. So that's Blake, CHOISNET.com, or on social platforms. I also have a free community of other real estate investors, people learning on school, called Rentals to Wealth. Rentals, the number 2, and wealth. You can join there. It's free. I got a bunch of trainings, got a communities there. I do live Q&As just because I want to help people work toward freedom. So any of those places, if you want to have a conversation with me, shoot me a DM on one of those social platforms or in school, and we'll get you taken care of.
Perfect, man. So everybody, thank you once again for tuning into this episode. And you know my 3 things: stay hungry, stay humble, and have a lot of fun doing it. Cheers, everybody.